Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. In this episode and the next, we're looking at a couple of foreign releases. This series is primarily based out of the US, so I mean non-US releases here, that are sort of the foreign equivalents to some US releases we've seen before, that are kind of neat and show us something a little bit different about a particular region. So you may recall that in 2005, we saw this pretty often. We actually saw a regular version of this, we saw a Target version, a Walmart version, a long box version, and so on. But it's an oddball item here because it's not marketed as a home video item per se, but it is the soundtrack for Revenge of the Sith. It's a CD, but inside here with the CD was a DVD of Star Wars: A Musical Journey, which basically took Star Wars music and did like they had done with, say, Duel of the Fates and the Across the Stars music and so on, and basically says, okay, we're going to take this music and make a video for the music. But instead of it just being the music, we're kind of making it more like a trailer, where there's actually dialogue and sound effects and scenes to go with it. So it's sort of a music video slash trailer-y type thing, kind of a hybrid deal here. And they had done that for songs from each of the prequel films. For this, they did it for a bunch of Star Wars music and put it all on here with or without an introduction by Ian McDiarmid that you can turn on. So it's interesting. It's just something you can kind of pop on in the background and listen to. It's not pure Star Wars music. It does have the dialogue and stuff in there. So it's kind of like watching trailers on a loop. It's a little bit odd, but a nifty little thing. It's certainly an oddball item in a Star Wars home video collector's collection. At least not in terms of it being rare or anything, but because it just isn't quite like anything else that had been produced up to that point, or since, frankly. We've seen all the different versions I know of from the United States. We've looked at one version from the UK. Now we're going to take a look at one from Japan and their approach. Now I'm going to hold this on here because I took it out of the plastic, because the plastic is even more reflective than the cover, but it is in a plastic cover here. So this, try to avoid the reflection, is the Japanese version here with an obi attached. We'll look at the obi in just a moment. So basically what you got here is pretty much like the American version, except for two phrases, pretty much. In English, it says original motion picture soundtrack, Star Wars, music composed and conducted by John Williams, includes exclusive bonus DVD, Star Wars: A Musical Journey. The only part here that's actually in Japanese is it says that episode 3, with the 3 being just the Arabic numeral there, but episode in Japanese, and Revenge of the Sith there in Japanese as well. The spine on either side is going to be the same, and it's also in English, but it does differ from the American one slightly because of the placement of product number and what company it's through. The American one is through Sony Classical. This one is through Sony Music Japan International Incorporated, and has moved the, at least from the American perspective, moved the product number to underneath the Sony blah 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 thing over there, but otherwise it just has your title. Okay, John Williams, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Nothing obviously on top or bottom, because that's just not how jewel cases work. And then the back, similar to the American version, no giant garish FBI warning or anything here, but again, pretty much English. I'm going to hold it like this so I can see it and hopefully not get you with too much reflection here, and then I'll show it to you a little bit closer again. So original motion picture soundtrack, Star Wars, and then Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith in Japanese. Music composed and conducted by John Williams, performed by the London Symphony Orchestra and London Voices. See and sign for DVD content information, track listing, credits, legalese, and all that. Interestingly, whereas the American version only tells you the runtime of the DVD, this one actually does have a little section at the bottom with DVD stats, noting that, among other things, what you're looking at here is NTSC, yes, so like the United States, but Region 2. It will not play in a standard Region 1 American DVD player. You need an all-region player or something else that otherwise avoids the region coding on the disc. Yes, I tried. Okay, so a similar back there. The obi here, product number and everything, title info, the price there of 2,940 yen, or 2,800 yen. I think that is a before and after tax kind of thing. I apologize for being a little shaky here. Very hot in this room, as always. There's your obi there. Notice that on the obi, for the most part, it actually does go for just straight Japanese. I mean, you got Star Wars, which is a logo that's in English, and you got Stereo and Sony Music Japan International that are in English, and the Sony Classical symbol up there. and over here. But for the most part, what you're looking at here is Japanese text, a way of sort of getting around the sheer amount of English, I guess, on the regular cover here. Now, unfortunately, my case is broken. My jewel case is broken. It either broke in the mail or before the mail and the seller didn't note it. But either way, I've wanted to switch it out, but I'm going to wait at least for now because the way it's designed, the jewel case, is a little bit different than the way we typically see American jewel case design. So I'm looking for one that's identical if I'm going to switch it out here. But suffice to say, I can open it up. It's supposed to just open like this, but mine is snapped off. But you have your insert with your art. Here we go. Poster style image here. And then on the back, that sort of 2x2 thing here is basically English text, right? It's the track listing stuff. It is the music composed by, etc., etc. It's all your credits here. It's the DVD listing over off to the side. It's the background stuff. It's basically what you would see, in a version pretty much anywhere where they are just using the English version of the insert minus the tiny bit of Japanese text there. But there is also this little listing that is a fold out here. Got some stats, legalese, and stuff like that on the other side. That's going to have your listing here of the CD and DVD content. So even though this is primarily English, you've got a Japanese guide here, very much like the case with the Obi. The CD looks very much like the American version, where you got your credit and track listing and the title and everything. Only real differences here, at least primarily noticeable differences, is of course the title and episode number down there in Japanese, and this one doesn't have that giant FBI warning symbol that you would typically see off on the side on the American version. Then, and pardon the lack of a top case, whereas the American version would open this way to get to the DVD, the Japanese one opens this way, and yes, that's another piece that has snapped as part of all of that damage. Underneath there is your cityscape, and then on the back of the arm that has the CD on it, there's your DVD. And the setup here is mostly the same. Again, no giant FBI warning. Slightly different layout to this down here, so there's a little box of Japanese text, and of course the stats are slightly different because this is Region 2 rather than Region 1. The American one, for what it's worth, doesn't even say Region 1, it just says NTSC. Really only a couple of minor differences between the American version and the Japanese version, now that I've got it back in the plastic here to protect it and put the Obi back on it and everything. And that is that when you first start playing it, in the US version, it does show the Sony Classical logo. This has the Sony Music Japan International logo. No big deal there, just whichever one is appropriate for the region. And whereas the American version has no subtitles available whatsoever, the Japanese version does have Japanese subtitles available. You can turn them on and off. It is not a permanent feature. So if you are someone in the US, you're into Japanese culture perhaps, or collecting Japanese items, this is a viable alternative to an extent if you've got a player to play the DVD from Region 2. But if you're into that sort of thing, you probably already do. So for those who have a player able to play Region 2, it's a nice viable alternative, or just something cool to stick in your collection here if you want to show something from another region, as opposed to the one we tend to see all the time in the US, which is just sort of that standard version back from 05. Both from 05 here, just different regions. Thought I'd show that. I thought it was kind of neat to see how the packages are a little bit different, how the Japanese version does get the subtitles, whereas the US version got no subtitles whatsoever, and just kind of the different way it sort of approaches that kind of hybrid version of, hey, let's present something with English text, but we also need to make sure that Japanese speakers get the information they need, so here's a slip and the Obi and all that kind of stuff. So it's a nice little way of seeing how a product that we think of and kind of take for granted in the US appears in another market. With that, we will wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers, or Star Wars music listeners, or those who watch videos that are kind of music but have a good musical journey? Yeah, something like that.